Today, we're going to wind down the week with some polling. We've got Georgia's Senate, New York Governor, even a little bit of Maine, but we're going to get things started here in Virginia. We've got two very different polls here for governor. The first headline here is Spanberger holds 4-point lead over Earl Sears in new poll. Of course, we've got Winsome Sears trying to hold that seat for the Republicans going up against Abigail Spanberger. And it does look like so far the Democrat has had the advantage. Now, this poll is from Pantheon and Harris X, and this is a competitive race, 52 to 48. That's close to a pure toss-up. It says 31% are definitely going Spanberger and just 23% definitely Sears. So technically not solid support there for either side. It thus shows 91% of Democrats going for Spanberger, 92% of Republicans going for Sears. Independents look like they're breaking for Spanberger by 6, 53 to 47. Now there's also a chance that former Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman gets into this race as well. If he gets in as an independent, he's going to get 7%, and he's going to pull from both sides. Spanberger still wins by 3, 48 to 45. So in that, it looks like Riggleman would get 4 from Spanberger and 3 from Sears. Now if we go down here, we've got some more of the details. Now there's a whole lot of data coming up, so we're not going to have time to go over every one of these questions. The other two I'm going to point out here are the approval ratings. We've got Donald Trump is underwater. He's at 44 approve, 56 disapprove. Governor Glenn Youngkin is positive, 54 approve, 41 disapprove. That's mostly consistent with what we've seen from Youngkin. Now, at the time I made the video, I could not find the crosstabs and the specific demographic breakdown for this poll. So as always, take it somewhat with a grain of salt. So if you think this one is a little bit too GOP friendly, this next one might be a little bit too friendly for the Dems. We've got the same race from Roanoke College. This has Spanberger leading Sears in early poll. Now let's get down into this data. This is drastically different. This has Spanberger ahead at 43 to just 26 for Sears. So a lot of undecideds in that one. And their sample size here is 658 residents. Margin of error 5.25%. And it shows a big 28% undecided. Now the rest of this is also totally different than what we just saw. We've got, for the first time in 8 years of polling, a majority, 51%, think Virginia have gotten off on the wrong track, while 2/3, 66% say the same about the country. Donald Trump's job disapproval rating is at 65%. His approval rating is at 31. And it even has Glenn Youngkin down at 46. That says it's his lowest. That's for his job approval. His favorability rating is at 44 favorable, 50 unfavorable. Also his worst showing. Trump is even worse, 33 favorable, 64 unfavorable. Spanberger here is 1 point above, 41 to 40. Sears is way underwater, 32 favorable, 48 unfavorable. The Democratic Party is at 51% unfavorable. The Republican Party is at 63% unfavorable. So these numbers are way different than what we just saw. Now you might think Roanoke College is not great for their polls. I went back at 2021 and looked, and yeah, they weren't the best, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing next time. But it is a wide gap on these two polls for the same state. Now the rest of this talks about political anxieties for each party. Again, there's just way too much here. Feel free to pause it if you'd like, and as always, all these links will be down below in the description. The one thing I can show you is the demographic breakdown for this poll. We do have 36% Democrat, 27 Republican, other and independent are at 36. And down below it asks independent which side they lean toward. We've got 32 Democrat, 28 Republican, and 38% independent or neither. So I'm not here to tell you what to think. Take a look at both of those polls, believe one or the other or neither. We're going to keep going. We've got a poll for Georgia. This is from Signal. So it could be a little bit of a Republican lean to this poll. But there's a lot here. We've got to zip through these numbers. First, they ask if Georgia is headed in the right direction or on the wrong track. We've got over 50% right direction, about 36 wrong track. Then we've got the generic ballot. This asks which party they would support for the U.S. Senate. Republicans here actually with a small lead, 48% to 44.5%. And that's what the focus of this poll is going to be. It's going to be on that Senate race. But real quick, we've got some favorability ratings. Trump is at 46 favorable, 50 unfavorable. Governor Brian Kemp, 59 favorable, 33 unfavorable. Kemp continues to have pretty stellar favorability ratings. Republicans are going to be highly disappointed that he's declined to run for that Senate seat. Now we've got Senator Raphael Warnock. He's at 46.6 favorable, 43.5 unfavorable. And Senator John Ossoff, who is up for re-election next year, 44.9 favorable, 37.2 unfavorable. And then we've also got Kelly Loeffler, who is actually former Senator Kelly Loeffler. She didn't get it done when she ran, and she's underwater here, only 28% favorable, 32% unfavorable. And then Trump's job approval is 48% approve, 49.5 disapprove. So just barely underwater there for Trump. Now we've got the head-to-head matchups. Against John Ossoff, the Democrat, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger actually leads Ossoff barely, 44.3 to 44.1. It's just by one vote in this 800 sample size. Now, as of now, Raffensperger has not yet declared his intent to run, but Buddy Carter has, and he's running just behind Ossoff, 42.1 to Ossoff's 46. How about a Loeffler-Ossoff matchup? Ossoff is ahead, 46.3 to 42.8. And Congressman Mike Collins, he trails John Ossoff, 43.3 to 45.7. Now we've got Insurance Commissioner John King. He's actually already in the race. He also trails Ossoff by a little bit, 42.1 to 44.7. So that's a lot of candidates against Ossoff. And these numbers show it competitive. Ossoff is not hitting 50%. But it's early. Due to Brian Kemp not running, Republicans have to dip into the bench. They've got time for their backup candidate to emerge over the next few months. But for right now, Ossoff looks like he's overall going to have a bit of an edge. But anything could change over the next year plus. And that's if you trust this poll, which I would say take a look at it, but also take a look at the others. And if you want to take a look at the demographic breakdown for this poll, it's right here. It's Republican at 40.5. Democrat at 37.5, Independent 19.1. So some good stuff there in Georgia in one of the most high-profile races next year. Now let's head over to New York. We've got a Siena College poll. Now there's a ton here. There's only a few things I want to highlight. We've got Governor Kathy Hochul's job approval rating is at 50 to 46. That's going to be 4 points above. But in the abstract, only 36% of voters are prepared to re-elect Hochul, compared to 55% who want someone else. That's a net 10-point negative movement from April. So Hochul is theoretically vulnerable in a primary. But what do Democrats say? Well, right now, 46% say they would vote for Hochul in a primary. That's going to be compared to 12% for her own Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado. He's getting 12%, and 10% for U.S. Rep. Richie Torres. Now, on the Republican side, none of these candidates are officially in the race yet, but 35% would vote for Elise Stefanik, 22% for Rep. Mike Lawler, and then 11% for Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. So a lot of question marks, technically on both sides, but a little bit more on the Republican side. Even though Hochul's vulnerable as an incumbent, no rockstar competitor has emerged to take her down in a primary, and Republicans look like they're going to wait and see what happens before they have to dip into their reserves and get a candidate to go up against Hochul. Stefanik and Lawler are going to have the highest name ID, and there's a chance they can make it interesting in a general election. It all depends on how much anti-Trump sentiment there is for the White House. That would seemingly spill over into a lot of these governor's races next year. Now, this poll does not test the general election, but there is another poll that does. This is going to be from Coefficient. Now, that is a Republican-backed pollster, so keep that in mind, but as of right now, it's the only thing we've got. This has a super tight race. It looks like there's actually a typo here on this New York Times article, but it would be 43% for Hochul and 42% for Stefanik, 15% undecided. And it also notes here that this is a right-leaning pollster. I always say polls on both sides this far out, you've really got to take it with an extra grain of salt. Some of them are going to pan out and be correct, but most of them I would say just take a glance at, because they're not going to be much more than amusing in the short term. Of course, Republicans are going to say, look how vulnerable Hochul is based on this poll. Democrats are going to say there's nothing to see here. Hochul is strong. This is a GOP pollster. I lean more toward the latter because Stefanik is not even in the race yet, and we've got so much time left. Either way, that's a quick glance at New York. Now let's finish it up here in Maine. Not too often we get a poll out of the state, but let's take a look at it. This is not going to be for Senate or for governor. This is for the U.S. House in the 2nd District. Now that's held by moderate Democrat Jared Golden, who recently announced he's actually running for re-election as opposed to going for governor or the Senate. And also recently, former governor Republican Paul LePage announced he's also making a run for this seat. Now in this poll, it's from the Congressional Leadership Fund. So this again should have a Republican backing, keep that in mind. But it does have Republicans leading the generic ballot 47 to 38. That's not insignificant. But in a Golden-LePage matchup, then Jared Golden actually trails 43 to 48 for LePage. Now the rest of this poll is hidden behind some sort of a paywall, so we can't take a look at that. But this is one of the few opportunities Republicans have to go on offense next year in the midterms in the House. This district easily voted for Trump at the top. Jared Golden barely scraped by in the House. So Golden has that crossover appeal, but he's also vulnerable. LePage is older. His name ID is sky high. He did win 2 terms in a 3-way race, but he also came back and took a loss to Janet Mills in 2022. And in politics, LePage was pretty much Trump before Trump. So if the LePage brand can still resonate for this specific district, then that's going to keep Golden on his toes. So Golden does need some crossover vote. More progressive Democrats are not going to be a fan of Golden, but he can make that up with some more moderate Republicans. That's what he's been doing over the last several elections. So we'll have to see what happens. Maybe in the end, neither of them are the frontrunners. But some interesting numbers here out of Maine. As with all these polls, put however much stock into them you'd like. But that's it, so let me know in the comments. What do you think about the 2 different polls we got out of Virginia? How about that Georgia Senate poll? What about in New York? And what do you think is going on here in Maine? Second, let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.